I know it's got 2 good tires.
With the camper, it's getting real.
Whose room? Oh, yeah.
Smile. Did you get me on the lecture?
Yeah, we brought along the family picture. For one of
Oh, those are neat. You'll have
well, I mean the whole deal, and that's part of it.
Oh, yeah, that's the beginning.
Right, the zippers. Can I borrow a buck from you?
We've got
Zippers. Get a load on that. Don't tilt the camera because you can zip it down.
That's when Brian's cooler has the spray.
No, they'll see the camera going down. They'll think you're going down to put the zipper on. Cooler than here.
That's from Brian. I don't know.
Everybody's in.
Yeah, I see that. Well, my brother is here.
Come down here.
I know what you're doing.
Okay.
Oh, it's about time, man.
Right here.
Go ahead. I'll get that.
good. He and Lisa get together. Wood shedding. We don't watch that.
You don't write down the you know where we were when we check in? Okay, it's right there. Okay, in the back.
However many groups that turns out to be, and not necessarily family, just wherever you are. And what we'll do is just count off, I think. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All the ones would go together, and all the twos would go together, and so on. And just talk about quickly what has happened in the last 2 years since the last reunion. In our case, it would be the last 4 years, wouldn't it? But basically the last 2 years since the last reunion, and just something good, bad, or indifferent that you might want to say. And then one person from the group of 5 would be the spokesperson for the group, and try to remember what each of the other 4 and he or she themselves said. And then just report that back after a little discussion, so that all the ones would get together and in this corner say, and all the 2s there, and all the 3s there, and all the 4s, and so on, and just share something, and spend maybe, what would you say, 10 minutes?
Oh, no.
15 minutes?
We thought that might be easier than each individual speaking.
So much for a leader.
On the hook.
You dethroned him.
I got the floor now, eh?
We thought it might be more comfortable than just having one person speak to the whole group. Does that feel more comfortable, or would we just like to have each one share as they want?
Count off.
Count off?
I just nobody that you want to have to speak. The alternative is just to go around the room and have everybody say something.
Are there any announcements, Keith, about activities tomorrow that could be made now?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Any ideas?
Associated name with the face. They're supposed to be sitting. Art Yeoman, right there. Hey, Hold the applause.
For he's a jolly good fellow.
And Rachel Stockton, right there. And me, Mike Barton. I'll start with just the order we went in. I'll start with Art. The highlight of Art's the last 2 years is that part of this, and Grandma will probably tell us the same story. Not to take the wind out of that, but for her 75th birthday, we gave him a trip to Hawaii for 2 weeks, and that was the highlight of his 2 years. He said that the thing that he thought most beautiful about Hawaii was the flowers. And the girls.
I didn't say hula girl.
Well, he said one girl. The girl
Not necessarily in that order, right?
The girl I was with.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other thing is that Art is Florence Nightingale that we're not.
Yeah.
He's been the best nurse that Grandma could have.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 things that Art felt like for the highlights of the last 2 years. Bill and Shirley, I'll do both of you together since they, over the last 2 years, they traveled quite a bit, and they've concentrated their travels on South America over the last 2 years, South America and Central America. And they, the big highlight is they took a 4-week cruise, and they started in, you'll have to help me, Bill,
Santiago, Chile.
in Chile, and they sailed around the lower Cape of South America and then came back up to
Rio.
Rio de Janeiro. They said that they're learning a lot of Spanish. They said that described the Latin people as very warm, and they by the same token thought that the flowers and all the life that they had seen down there were the most interesting things. They've also done some traveling in Central America. The other big thing is that Shirley has been involved in the last year in a program that raises money for like a children's fund, and it involves a rummage sale, and Shirley was kind of the chairperson of this board, and they were able to raise $100,000 to help children. Moving right along to Rachel Stockman. Now this is a good one. Rachel Stockman, she spent the last summer, she went to a fine arts camp where she learned sign language, and she learned some dance, she learned music, and theater. And the other thing is that this year she's going to be 7th grader in junior high. And then with Peggy being busy in Lincoln, Rachel's taken right over and seems to be running the house and doing quite a good job of it. Peggy's a little concerned about her job. At least that's what Rachel tells me. Okay, and then on what I've done is just before the last family reunion, we just come back from a trip from Europe for we were there for 6 weeks and traveled basically all over. And then graduated from college. And I got a degree in construction management, graduated in the top of my class. Thank you about that. I'm working now out in California for a construction company, putting my degree to work. We've been there for about a year and a half. Last summer, another highlight was that I married Susan over here. That's about it. It's Group 8.
Good job. Well, let's just move right on down the line and go to 7.
All right.
Katie.
Those are my group. Susie McKenzie and Molly and Sally and myself. And I guess I'll start with Sally. She's described her life as a typical middle-class, middle-aged person.
Middle-aged?
She enjoys taking care of her home and her garden, and we had so much to talk about. That was why we were late here. She's been working with a food co-op type of thing. What's it called again?
Central Virginia Food Bank.
And they gather, like when trucks wreck and just all different types of maybe damaged packages and whatnot. They gather hundreds and thousands of pounds of food, and then different nonprofit organizations come, different food banks and soup lines come and kind of go shopping there. So she works there 1 day a week and has coordinated a lot of the activities there. And I guess she helps with the Hands Across America, coordinating that for Richmond, Virginia area, and plays tennis just for fun. And Molly is going to be in the 5th grade. She is an active dancer and gymnast, and she's got to go to Florida this year for a competition in dancing. She doesn't like school. She likes to travel, but she hates driving in the car. And she's really glad to be here.
Oh, good.
We're glad to have her.
I enjoy Molly a lot.
Yeah.
And Susie said she's gone through a lot of spiritual growth in the last 2 years. She continues to be really active at Immaculate Conception. Incarnation. Right. Incarnation. You guys don't know it. And she's famous for her funeral lunches.
People are dying again.
And she's very active in her children and their girls' lives at school. I think she must be a great mother.
Yeah.
Seems like it.
Yep.
I agree.
And I, since our last reunion, have spent 2 years traveling with a Catholic outreach to youth called the National Evangelization Teams. And both years, I just to tell you where I went, I was in Idaho, in Montana, in Spokane area. And then after Christmas, we get 2 weeks off for Christmas. And then I was in Ohio, Mississippi, Arkansas, and the Green Bay area. And what our organization, there's about, this last year there were 68 young people from all over the United States and Canada, Australia, and Trinidad. And we all gathered together in St. Paul and went through training. And basically, we're young people who are in love with the Lord and in love with our Catholic faith, and we wanted to share that for a year. So we made a commitment for a year to go out and work with young people. Just to tell you the scope, this last year I was on a team of 12, and we worked with 11,500 people on the retreats, and then we also stay in homes, and it's been a really it's been a privilege to be able to do this kind of work. And I'll be continuing on staff for NET and helping with the training and organization of next year's teams. So that's what I've been doing, and I got to spend a month at home this summer. That was always good.
Thanks, Katie. That was great. Let's have number 6.
Number 6.
All right.
And I'm Uncle Ed. The oldest of the group. And may I introduce Margaret, and Kathy, and Louise, and Larry. And I guess maybe we might start with the youngest, and that's Margaret, Maggie, who's 6.5 years old, and is going into the 2nd grade come the fall. And she has had the use of a pool that is 3 feet deep in her backyard. She and her two sisters make great use of that pool. That I know firsthand. She's very proud of that. And she also has and shares with her sister a new hamster called Teddy. So that's a lot of fun. And on the way down here, she said the biggest thrill she's had is to ride the water slide at the Hill City camp that we stayed at about the 3rd night out. I guess it was at those grounds there. And also this last 4th of July at Buffalo at Lake Pulaski with her other grand folks, their boat placed 4th in the parade on the 4th of July. First, I am sorry. First and 4th. And she's also a dancer and has won a trophy that I believe she described as that tall. And she's won, I think, 3 first place awards in her dancing club. And Kathy, during the last couple of years, moved out on her own and has an apartment in South Minneapolis on around 60th and Lindell, which is a big move. I remember moving out, a few years ago. I think the first time I went down to Louisville and stayed with Kay when I was about 15. But anyway, and she owns her first car. She has a new dog called Smokey. She has, I think in the last couple of years, started work and you put 3 years in at American Hardware Mutual Insurance Company on the shores of Lake Calhoun in Minneapolis. And let's see, I guess that about wraps it up, unless there's something you would... Oh, and for the first time, vacation in Florida. We happen to be part of the lucky ones that were with her, so we had a wonderful time down there. So that was fun. Now we have Larry and Louise. And with Louise, she finished her master's in psychology, which is really something. she also is now working as a therapist, and also runs classes, you don't say runs classes, but has classes in aerobics. I don't know more than one, I'm sure. I don't know how many you're handling. You're so darn busy that it's hard to keep up with. And she's also, and I guess probably the proudest being the fact that she's a good wife and a good mother. So another thing that I have to mention about the both of them, and they admitted this, they both told me the fact that they're 40 years old, they're in their 40s. So I think
Middle.
Barely remember.
Larry changed jobs and is with a Danish hearing aid company called Danavet. So
What?
Sir? This gentleman here, his name is Larry. I wish you'd talk to him. Your name again, sir? I can vouch for the fact that they have a new boat. We had a wonderful time, spent a wonderful time on that boat about 2 weeks ago out in Prior Lake. And it's just a beautiful boat. I don't know how many feet, but they've had a lot of fun with it, with their family and other families that they're acquainted with in the parish and what have you. So that is quite an acquisition. Where else are we? Well, I guess that's probably about it, and the family fun is a big part of it.
You, Ed.
Well, Ed is here. Let's see, I think one of the big things was the fact that Joanna and I have 6 grandchildren now, 3 girls and 3 boys, and we acquired our 3rd boy here, Michael, August 20th. Will be 2 years ago this August. And we are very proud of the other 5 grandchildren. I want you to know that. We do have a lot of fun with our kids. I've got to say that I feel very fortunate that we have the wonderful kids that we have and the fact that we have the great grandchildren. And we take advantage of it. We do spend a lot of time together, and it's been very enjoyable. I think another thing that came up recently that we have enjoyed doing was working on this family tree bit. Just so happens that the first contact was made through me, through who apparently will be one of our second cousin, I'm not sure the relationship, of a lady in Michigan by the name of Eleanor Struble Martin. She made the contact and went from there, and then Susie took over and did an awful lot of work time-wise. She enjoys it, so it's been no big deal to her. Patty came along and helped put it together, and we used Lee's equipment at his office, and everything has worked out well. And we'll have fun talking about that later. But I think that's probably about it for me. I'm very proud of the fact I've been sober for 10 years. I'm just proud of that. I'm not bragging. It's a day-by-day deal, and that's all right. I'm sure. But I will mention it. I guess that's about it for the number 6.
There's Michael, who's going to be 2 years old in August, and he's going to be a hockey player. And she just went, they have a new addition to their house. They just finished like 3 months ago, 13 months ago. And next, she works at the Cleaners. Driving the car through my school. And
We didn't really get into detail as we showed up here, just real brief. So
Just wait till next week.
whatever.
Good.
And then Tim, he just graduated from 8th grade. He's home tonight. And
what school are you going to, Andy?
Holy Angel.
Right.
He likes to play basketball.
Great.
What about you, Andy?
And I'm going in 4th grade, 9 years old. Going on to 10 in January. And go to school.
Good for you.
Great job, Andrew.
We kind of classify ourselves as being a little boring. I can sit here, can't I?
No, you gotta get out in the middle.
No, I don't. I'll start with Pete, I guess. And, we all know Pete's a little active, and he was involved in a lot of sports, I take it. And he skis on their new boat that they paired in. And,
Ours.
well, it's not. Okay. My mistake. And he's taking a trip to Florida. And the wedding that was 2 years ago, that was exciting for him, he said. And just what any typical homemaker, I think that a 12-year-old would do. And, okay, next to our group would be, I'll start with Gino. And Gino, they seem like everyone's been to Florida in the group, but Gino went to Florida and he spent some time in Orlando. And he said not much is new, I guess, in the last 2 years, but I know he gets into his sports. He's seen a few professional games up in the Twin Cities. And I'm looking forward to being out there so he can get some tickets to the game.
Good,
Good. And Keith said not much is new in Virginia, I don't know. But,
Things happened there since 1860.
right. And then, well, he's taking a lot of trips, like one to Jamaica and one to Florida. I think is that correct?
No.
Okay, well.
I countered Florida with North Yorkshire.
Oh, well, okay. My mistake. So that was fun. All was new. And then, who else? Is that it? No, Kevin. There you go.
Oh, here he is.
He said nothing is new in his life. But he took his 2 girls down to the dance, or the camp or something in Florida competition. He said he enjoyed that a lot. And I think that's about all I got out of him. And with me, I've kind of been involved in some of my high school activities. With car accidents, broken arms, and been in some of this sports and a few musicals that we've had. So that's kind of been fun. But and that's it.
Where are you going to school?
Oh no, okay, no. I'll be a freshman at St. Thomas.
All right. Thanks, man. Good job. Let's see, we're down to 3 now.
Okay, we're group 3, and I'll start with Mary. After the last reunion, Mary and Gino went to Mary's father's 90th birthday, and so then they had a reunion, I guess a reunion there also
In Vegas.
in Las Vegas, and then they took a trip to Florida also. It seems like everybody's going to Florida. And then just recently she's found that she has diabetes, and so she's coming to grips with that, and we'll work through that. So wish her well.
And our cat.
And oh yes, I have a great new cat.
Really?
And wakes Gino up in the morning by petting him on the That's real early. And Brian.
Hello, or you have to go out to the bathroom, or what?
He wants to go.
And Brian and his wife can make the last reunion to have their son Michael. And then also just recently they put an addition on their house that they're very proud of, and they have bay windows and a fireplace. And so they just completed that, put a lot of time and effort into that. So I think they're just most of their time and their emotion and energies have gone into their son and their new house. Really proud of that. So. And John was mentioning their family went to Expo 86 in Vancouver, and just had a really good time there, just as a family thing, and then took a family ski trip together. And then just recently, he thought the most rewarding thing he's had is, I guess, like a seminar on like understanding your feelings and dealing with, I guess, traits of alcoholism, and then seeing how that affects your relationships and dealing with that. And he's really come to grips with his feelings and how to deal with relationships. Feels really proud of that. And so that's really good. And Melanie, as the dancer, yes, and went down with Molly down to Florida. I guess had a great time, and I'm not really sure what type of dancing. Everything from tap dancing to jazz dancing, and learn new things each time. And it's like an extra thing outside of school, so it's pretty good for an 8th grader. Get out and do a lot of stuff. And myself, let's see, I'm studying architecture at the University of Colorado, and probably the most rewarding thing is about a month ago I got back from Europe. I went on a seminar, 6 weeks studying architecture through England and Scotland and Switzerland and Italy and Greece, and learned a lot about myself. Had plenty of time to figure things out for myself and what I wanted to do, as well as what our group was doing. So I have more drive and ready to do. That's our group.
Great. Good job, Dennis. Number 2.
Number 2. Let's see. We'll start with Heather. Heather recently went to New York in July for a dance competition, and she said they had a lot of fun doing that. They learned a lot of new techniques from different instructors for all the various kinds of dance she's been doing, so she said that was fun. But on sort of the serious side of her trip, she said seeing the poverty and some of the sadder parts of large city life, it kind of made her think and realize how fortunate she is and what she does have in her life now in comparison to what a lot of other people don't have. Let's see, you also went, where did you go before that?
Florida.
Florida, yeah, Florida. We've got through those.
Did you want to join us?
And she said that was mostly it, that the dance was a big part of it. And then for Patty, she got married, moved, and we started going back to school again. And she's in small business management, and so she really enjoys that. She felt like her, when we were talking about the difference between an occupation and a career, she felt like she was in an occupation and at a dead end, and now she feels like she's moving into something that could really be a long-term career, and she can grow, and it will challenge her. Let's see, and they went to Florida. And they went on honeymoon to Puerto Vallarta and had a really good time there. And that is quite everything. And then for Peg, a highlight was Danny's graduation from high school. And and then the fact that they had an exchange student last summer for 2 months from Mexico City, Karina, and we had fun doing that, and they might do it again sometime, so she was thinking. And then she started, and it's clinical pastoral education, right? She started going into that, and it's been kind of a challenge because it's not a typical thing to do unless you're ordained. And she thought that would be a good challenge and something to focus her life on, as well as her family, to kind of expand things. And people are kind of growing in different directions, and this is something that she can move into. And you're going to finish that here pretty quick.
1 more week.
Yeah, 1 more week. And she said it's been a real challenge too because of the people she's been dealing with, or a certain person in her program is kind of difficult, so it's been personal and something hard to do as well as just the actual program. And
I mean, a grandma.
Oh, yes, yes. How can I forget that? In all their lives, and she just loves playing with him. And he's brought out the playfulness and bringing a fresh air, being so young and little and fun to play with. And everybody, I think, has said that about Jimmy, that they really enjoy being as really bad as him be here. They won't make the last one either. That, I think that's about everything. And then for Anne, she's also had something that's been sort of a big change in career-wise. She, after being away last summer when they were going to Europe, when she came back, she was kind of at a loss and wondering sort of what direction she wanted to go in. And she started up in the community, health.
It's for the state health department.
State health department.
Counselor certification.
Right, and she started out first just working part-time with them, and then slowly worked her way into more and more responsibility in different direction, and now she's at a point where she's dealing with administrative and therapy with it's outpatient, isn't it? And she coordinates their program there, and she said she's been working there for 2 years now, and she feels like she's reached sort of an area where she'll be happy and should fulfill a lot of what she wants to do. And let's see, biking. Yeah, she's tried a lot of different sports, and she really enjoys biking. Although they've been having a few days ago, she said that has not changed the way she feels about it. She's still going to go on with it. She's just not going to ride Pete's bike. And, their goal is to try to get in shape so that they can bike up from Boulder to Fort Collins, so they can visit some friends there, and they'll just stay the night and then come back, which is a pretty big challenge for biking.
It's what, 51?
Yeah, or 1990, isn't it? Oh, no. Well, next month.
It's about 50 to 55 miles one way.
Yeah. We're going to buy helmets, too.
Annie, why don't you share with everybody the name of the clinic you work, according to the Boulder Sheriff and Police Department.
I also got a ticket on my bike for not stopping at a stop sign. And I had to pay $30, and I was just livid. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and the guy came around the corner with his lights on and his siren going. But anyway, he had made me spell everything, my name and everything, and then he said, what's your occupation? I said, counselor, and he said, where do you work? And I said, the Whole Person Health Center. Well, I got that home, and I was showing Pete this ticket, and I started reading it. He heard me say, I'm a counselor at the Hopeless Health Center. I wasn't mad anymore. They need lots of counselors. I was looking like that. That was it.
How about you?
Oh. And let's see, I graduated from college also. Mike and I graduated together, and I have a major in animal science. And we got married in July and moved to California, so those were all big things for me to move through. Being in California is really nice. We're living in San Diego, and I enjoy it a lot. It's a nice place to live, but it is hard being so far away from family. And that took me a while when we first moved out there to adjust to that. I'm working in a veterinarian clinic in San Diego as an assistant to the veterinarian and receptionist. I just kind of float around and do a lot of different things, and it's been really interesting. I work with a great group of people. It's a fun job. And what else? Mike and I like to be active together, but it's hard with his job. He works long hours, so we don't spend much time together. That's one of the bad parts about it. But that's mostly it. Group number 1.
well, games were last second, take as much time. One thing that kind of struck me from my group was that everybody mentioned a lot of family things. I just thought that was important, just at the family reunion, that just how important everybody felt that was. First, I'd like to honor Grandma. She turned 76 this year. She's really thankful for another year of life and looks forward to another year of good health. First highlight she mentioned was her Christmas trip to Hawaii this past Christmas with Art, and just that was a lot of fun. She was really thankful for the gift that was from the kids and to be able to do that. I know that's been a dream of hers all your life, right? So, it's been a good thing, but it was a tough thing too. She had her hip replaced on April 16th, and she's been doing a really good job recovering from that, and hopes to keep getting better with that. And then another thing that's kept her busy, she's doing volunteer work at a nursing home. She spends time one-on-one with patients, and if they need a letter written, she'll write a letter for them. And I don't know exactly what else here.
Well, it's just, whatever comes up.
Okay. And then Lee Rademacher was another person in our group. First thing he mentioned was he was thankful for their first anniversary in their marriage. And a big change for them was they settled into a new home in Minnetonka. It was just a short distance from where he lived, and then just a few miles from where Patty was living. And then they took a belated honeymoon in November to Mexico together, which was a lot of fun. They also, somebody went to Florida in our group too. In March, went to Florida. Sounds like Lee keeps pretty busy. These are a couple of things that he mentioned that he enjoys a lot. He's involved in a barbershop quartet. Chorus. Okay. And he's also involved in racing some racehorses out of Canterbury Downs. And he said his work keeps him pretty busy. And he also celebrated a family reunion on his site just a week ago up in Alexandria, Minnesota. So that's Lee. Next person in our group was Peter Barton. First thing he started off with was something that's been hard for him this past year, and that was having to say goodbye to all the kids in their family. Molly just left today for Sweden, and the other 4 guys are away from home now. And they also had 6 to 3.
We kept in the attic.
The cat, what was the cat?
Yeah, he's male.
And then they also had 2 exchange students, Meta from Sweden, and she's went back home, and then now this one, Meichio from Japan, also returned back home. And a big plus for him this past 2 years was he received an award at the University of Colorado it was the Stearns Award, and it was a huge bronze medal. I couldn't stand it.
How long?
It was too heavy to carry. And I guess Robert Redford showed up to witness it too, and that was pretty exciting.
He hasn't watched it since.
And that award was for many years of good service to the college, so that was a real honor for me. And he also started a new job as Director of Alumni at the University of Colorado. And he did say that he really doesn't know a lot about the job. He's only there for 6 months until they find a replacement for him, and then he'll be returning to his job.
We found out from Ralph he has to drink a lot of martinis.
I find somebody that knows how to do the job. Yeah, but somebody has to do it, right?
And then, I think this is your first reading, right, Tori?
No, it's not second reading.
I'm sorry. Okay. And this is Tori, and she'll be a freshman out in West Virginia. Richmond. And she's changing to a new school this next year, and I think she's excited about that. One of her highlights was her trip with her parents to Jamaica. She said that was a lot of fun. And a real interesting thing about Tori is her job is she works with deaf children and acts as a...
It's not just children, it's everybody.
Oh, okay. It's called CCD, Communication with the Deaf, for the Deaf. And she acts as a modem.
No.
I think I'm going to let her explain.
What do you want me to tell? It's not, no, the phone's hooked up to a modem. I just put the word.
And you're hooked up to the phone, you have been for the last 5 years.
I think like a deaf person would need to.
A modem is a means of hooking a word processor to the telephone with another one.
She's not that.
That's what it is.
People who are deaf can call and ask questions at some place, and you are the one who are relaying the answers back and forth, right? We do that.
So that sounded really neat. She said that maybe in the future she'd like to continue to work with deaf children, or just deaf people. And they do grow up to it. She also knows sign language with that job. And then myself, I'm single.
Are we supposed to get a t-shirt for you?
I finished 3 years at St. Thomas up in St. Paul, and I'll be going back there for my senior year. And I'm a biology major, and I'm thinking of going into secondary education. Well, a highlight for me the past 2 years was our family trip to Vancouver, British Columbia. I think a lot of my highlights over the past year center on my family, and I'm really thankful for that. And I've also been packing a lot of boxes this summer. I work in a shipping department, and I can say that I do over 100 things a day at my job. Pack over 100 boxes. And then another... I'm going to get through this. Some fun that I've taken on in the past years is painting a car, and that's brought a lot of joy and a lot of fun to my life. And I'm living in St. Paul this summer in a Christian home with 7 other men, and that's been a real blessing in my life and really strengthened my relationship with the Lord, and I'm thankful for that. And I'm glad to be here. Katie and I flew out to Denver, and both of us talked about how important it was for us to be here and how much fun it is to be here. I think that's kind of the general consensus of our group.
Well, I think the people that reported on each of their groups have done a marvelous job. They're good listeners and they're good speakers and they're comfortable in this group. That's neat. Good.
Yeah. Oh. Well, yeah, certainly. It's pretty.
Did we? So we sent them out Christmas cards. Yeah, Nick? Well, why'd you have one taken? Well, what do you mean with who? I think we can do our 5 for bands. But have the girl in red sit next to the man in white. Did you want my the red and pink?
Yes, if I could, please.
I'm one of the mountain climbers from this area. They came down to take some pictures. This one better turn out or I'm going to be upset. Thank you.
Are you related to Grizzly Adams?
Yes, he's one of my dear friends. That's his house up there, see?
Oh, boy.
From this side?
What a view.
We're supposed to be in the sun.
So what are you going to go do, horseback ride? Yep, 9:30.
Look at the camera.
Oh, good, you guys. Good.
Yeah. Here you go, Mom.
Okay, snuggle up. Come here. Okay, now this, on this next one. The girl with one of the chairs. Mom, do you have a cold? Hey, Pete and Drew, I'd like to have your picture taken. On the backdrop, okay? Where? There you go. There, like that. But I want to get a comb. Nick, do you have a comb? That's for you. Do you have a brush in the Oh, wait. Aunt Sue's, or, Ann's got a brush. Can I borrow your brush? Yeah. I was going to have the boys' picture, but I didn't want to put the two of them. We've got our wedding pictures, of course. Well, that would have made a great shot. No. Okay, right here. Beautiful smile. Look at that elbow. Wandering around there.
Well, at first I thought you were that's kind of knocked out the door. Okay, well, I'll just talk to you.
Whoa. There's 4 of them, Drew. Maybe that's common. Michael! Smile, Mikey! Mikey, Pete! Mikey! Don't you smile! Your spine. Hi, Mikey, Pete! Don't you smile, Michael! Don't smile! Don't smile, Michael! I see it. There it is. Bring Dan out. Don't smile. Mikey. There it is. Mikey. Two of you right up here. Don't smile. I see it. Honey, you're Mikey. You did a good smile. Did he? Yeah, I'm sure. You smile. You look yeah, brothers, don't smile now. But he's just not a redhead. On, that's on. Yep, that's on. Can we dance for you guys too? Oh, I'm glad. I tried the camera to break with the words. That's great. I'm glad you're doing that. That's a lot of business. Oh, I bet you do miss them. The word? We really didn't no. Wow, we go to Omaha and then it was like, oh, one more. They're so cute.
It's like a really compact toy.
Yeah, it is. Pretty easy to run. It's nice and light.
Camera's still intact.
Oh, now I can relax.
Tough holding the stomach, yeah. I know the feeling.
And now he wants to play tennis, so do you think they mind if she can't?
This guy, he's a real pro with a big extension on there.
Yeah.
A real pro. Let me get under here.
Okay, and then you go. Yeah. Okay, because she wants to play.
We have to wear socks on horses.
Oh, yeah.
Show your teeth, Grandpa. Do not smile. Show your teeth. Would you like to compete in with Princess Di? Cheese. Yeah, are you ready?
like this for the rest of the day. It's a good thing we don't have to put on heels.
This way, yeah, not that way. That's a Jew, that's a chop.
I love these new clothes that are making passport for you. I can buy it. Exactly.
The only thing to suggest is you can use the bench a little bit, put your foot up on, that'll bring you down a little closer to her. Yeah, there you go.
You know, I may frame it, put it on the wall. Is that our picture, Joanne?
That's United Church of the Brethren National Youth Conference.
Isn't that cute,
It's United Church of the Brethren, and it's their National Youth Conference. They're here about every 4 years. A total of 45 minutes from first person came until we said, that's it. And they kind of came slow to us. We had it all staked out. We could have done it a lot faster, but they were enjoying it. They were having a good time. They had music playing.
That'll kind of give you an idea what the background will be like. Look at
We were shooting a video. Aurora. One of the fastest growing towns in the country, isn't it? Fill up the benches. We're going to fill up the benches first. So I need one guy in white right next to her. Okay. And Ann, is that your boyfriend? You can take him as one. You can sit down there. Okay, you can sit next to him then. You know, she's very protective of her territory, though. Could I get the guy in back? Ann, which one's yours? Okay, I'm going to put you two right there then. All right. So everybody will have to move just a little to give Ann and Pete just a little more room. Move over just a touch. Move over just a touch. Now the other way. Okay, well, we might still be able to do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can do it. It's 10, so. Now the rest of you get in there, mix the guys in with some of the ladies. Step in close, put some hands up on some shoulders of those folks. Come on in. There you go. There you go.
Make sure you talk a little bit.
Want me to kiss it? Want me to kiss it?
Art's good about getting to know people, isn't he?
Want me to kiss it?
I hear you're very quiet most of the time, Art. Is that true? Yeah? Powder, get the powder. Did you hear what he said? He said, is that shine too much for you or something? Is that a son-in-law or something? That's right. Now, I'll tell you what you can do, Art. You can touch is this your daughter? You can touch her, you can hold her hand or whatever. Good. We're big on that. This guy right here, is that grandmother? You can put your hand up her shoulder, around, whatever you want. Yeah, whatever feels good. Now, is that your brother? Cousin? You can touch him. There you go. He's a good-looking cousin. Good-looking. The rest of you, reach out, touch some people, put some hands. There you go. Reach out, touch someone. Reach out.
Ready? Stuffed animal. Oh, what is that stuffed animal?
Oh, we got a couple here.
Yeah.
Isn't he a mess? He's a Boulder chicken, too. Got him on the Boulder Mall. I can get about anything on the Boulder Mall, I think. There was a nice article on the news about the Boulder Mall the other night. What do you need? Yeah, I'll get you Yeah, Boulder. That's Boulder. Good? Yeah. You find out here. Takes a lot of work.
And believe me, it's there.
All right, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, I wish you had seen me. Who's the other two? The boys from... What am I thinking of? I think they were black.
You want to start like that?
Upon this rock. Yeah, upon this rock. Great.
Yeah.
I found my rock.
You found your rock?
That 5 o'clock rock is medicine rock.
Is that right?
That was my choice. Six is a little.
Only savages, you know.
Are you a savage?
We're gonna start off by singing a song, and I thought I would just teach a song to you because I don't know what all songs we know. And also, I don't have any music. This is one that I know, but the refrain to this is, sing to the Lord a song of praise with new hearts, bless his name. Sing to the Lord a song of praise, to all the earth his deeds proclaim. So why don't we just, I'll just sing through it, Paul, and whoever else knows it. Rachel, you know it. She's not great at it. Huh? And Paul's going to lead a liturgical dance later.
Oh, great. Randy, wait. Wow. Oh, I see. At least 50 of those.
It goes like this. Sing to the Lord a song of praise with new hearts. Bless his name. Sing to the Lord a song of praise to all the earth. His deeds proclaim. Sing to the Lord a song
God's creation and His beauty, especially mentions the mountains in Psalm 104. And I think too, as we listen to this, just that we can really bless the Lord and praise and thank Him for the goodness and the beauty in His creation and all that we experience here in the mountains, but also His goodness in our family and in being together. Bless the Lord, O my soul, O Lord my God, you are great indeed. You are clothed with majesty and glory, robed in light as with a cloak. You have spread out the heavens like a tent cloth. You have constructed your palace upon the waters. You make the clouds your chariot. You travel on the wings of the wind. You fix the earth upon its foundation. With the ocean, as with a garment, you covered it. Above the mountains, the waters stood. As the mountains rose, they went down the valleys to the place you have fixed for them. You set a limit that they may not pass, nor shall they cover the earth again. You sent forth springs into the watercourses, and that wine among the mountains. And you give drink to every beast of the field. You water the mountains from your palace. The earth is replete with the fruit of your works. Well watered are the trees of the Lord, the cedars of Lebanon which He planted. In them the birds build their nests. Fir trees are the home of the stork. The high mountains are for wild goats. The cliffs are a refuge for rock badgers. How manifold are your works, O Lord! In wisdom you have brought them all. The earth is full of your creatures. I think as we're here this morning, that we just invite, first of all, some of you may have to leave for the horseback ride, and that's fine. But just that anyone is free to share prayer or to read or share a scripture, and that this time is what we can create and make it. And I just invite and welcome and encourage you to enter in.
I'd just like to thank God and thank all of you, and especially my family. They are here and in good health and enjoying a wonderful weekend with their relatives, which I think is one of the best things this family has ever done, especially these reunions. I can't get over the fun of it. I know we're just kind of a typical family. We look forward to this reunion. You wouldn't believe it. Everybody had a feeling about it. Can I really wait to get here? So we thank God and we thank all of you. Thank you.
Mommy.
And the opportunity to be together. And then it all works out. So many things around the bridge going on. None of them expected to go well.
I'd like to thank the Lord for the inner healing that continues to take place within us and between us and among us.
I just like to thank the Lord for this time here, and also to ask the Lord to bless and protect those family members who are not with us, to be with them, to guide them, keep them safe.
Was sharing yesterday that there's a real strong family tradition in the Strubles of being really active in church, going back to the generations long ago that some of the record shows that they were involved in building churches, and that there's just always been a strong church tradition. And just seeing how you live your life and that life of faith, and you try and pass it on to those in your family and those around you, and then they in turn pass it on, and you just think it's been going on for generations and generations, and sometimes it seems like maybe such a small endeavor, but then you just
think of the fruit that it's borne and how many times it's been multiplied over. And I mean, how many hundreds or thousands of people that have lived like since the first Strubles have caught that faith from the people, their relatives, and it's a big thing. And it takes your own efforts to live your faith and to pass it on to your kids, and just that real heritage and tradition is really powerful. But I didn't know that about our family, and I've been thinking about it since you shared that yesterday.
I'd like to thank the Lord for Agnes and Ike. They've become very special people for me. And I guess I felt I really got to know them through working on this book. And I think they're very special people, although I didn't know them real well, especially Isaac. But they mean a lot to me, and especially being at Incarnation Church where they were and where Dad and Uncle Bill and Aunt Kay were. I feel very lucky and fortunate to be there, to be a part of it.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Agnes and Ike.
They are certainly something special to all of us. We have a lot of fond memories of them, and just good, normal, natural, wonderful people.
I'm grateful for that tradition because, you know, as a parent, the most important gift that I have to give my children is a real faith experience, to really believe in God and to have a relationship with Christ. And to know that history and tradition is part of this family is, you know, I'm blessed and grateful for the Struble strength in that area. And I really pray that all of us can really, you know, continue to live that tradition, be faithful to the Lord in the way that He calls us to serve and to witness, to be His family.
I guess I'd like to share that you never know from whence He speaks, and certainly I've benefited by your part of your family that I'm associated with, from the standpoint. Gained a lot, finally starting to listen and able to share some of these things spiritually that was not a part, was not common in my background. And I'm grateful for that. To you folks and to God.
Without this family, I really wouldn't have too much of a family because I don't have any brothers and sisters. My parents are dead, and I'm the youngest of 51st cousins. Most of them are dead.
Oh my
and so I really wouldn't have very much family, even though numerically at one time I really had a large family, but I was at the tail end of it, so I really wouldn't have them. So you've been my adopted family. But it's scriptural because the husband leaves, the son leaves father and mother and cleaves to the wife and her family, and so that's scripturally ordained. So if no one else will follow scripture, at least I am.
You're more right than you're a little higher up than we are.
Gonna have the ring out there.
Yeah, you wouldn't care to get that.
Okay.
I want to thank the Lord that we have the financial resources to go on these trips and to get together every couple of years and just
I'm really thankful for the spirit of joy that everybody contributed. It's really awesome to get a single icon.
glad to see his sister and his brother be here with all of our families. It's great, and they have that here too.
I just thank you, God, for all the healing that, you know, I think of Uncle Ed and what God's done to give him such good health. And just the fear, you know, that we had some years back in his very life. How good God is, and how Grandma Kate and just that, you know, her spirit and her willingness to keep on, just keep that healing process going for her. Really pray, Lord.
We decided last night on the ledge that you're better looking than you've ever been. That's right.
Well, thank you very much.
I've been hearing that from everybody.
As an ego, I'm sure.
Right.
Thank you.
I'd like to bring up too, because during the time Dad was sick, I really felt prayers were coming from Nebraska and Colorado. I really think that's what it is for Dad.
Yeah,
I want to thank you all. No, they were not from Minnesota, especially Savage area.
You didn't hear the one?
No, because I really felt, I could feel it, and as he was healing and getting better and things were going out well, I really knew that's where it was coming from. So I thank you.
Well, I would like to thank all of you for the prayers. That's about, I guess it was 4 years ago. I do consider myself very lucky, and I guess the people could really feel in the predicament I was in, and I am fortunate in the condition I'm in. So I deeply appreciate all the help that
Mom.
Here's the cup.
Hi there, Stella.
All sorts of like that.
It's real thick.
This my grayson?
And everybody sends it.
Susie going?
I wouldn't mind moving back. Well, no, 68. No, I meant when you were married. For 69. We were married in 69. I changed it in the book. And 52, so.
Yeah?
We lived in Colorado Springs for a while.
Do you need the money now?
Went up and down there. Try and get a non-profit work.
See the big one Patty's on?
Patty on.
Yeah, they.
But I also have
What a pretty guy we got.
But that's your group. There's always a special group. Really? Yeah. I think so. Where is it?
We have equal family here in Minnesota. Both of them are.
Yeah. But I mean the people who are around, or the climbers. But that's just like
Sunvisors on.
To get going. He says, I'm ready to go. He says, why don't you come over here and get out? All right. I don't know. What's that all?
Did Michael over there, man?
Oh,
you think I'm gonna help her?
We got to cut in.
Talk about it when we'll talk about when the kids go over.
Get Patty back.
Oh, yeah. That's the tour. So
How long are we going for, then?
well, they got Lee set up over here.
This one wants some action.
All over here. This is the horsey road. That's Michael. Here.
Oh, Ryan.
What?
Oh.
Boy. He's a nice boy. Isn't that nice? Isn't he a nice guy, though? Hi. Hi, guy. Hi, guy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
You want to pet him? Here, he's your friend. He's your buddy. He's your buddy. He's your buddy.
So stay right here then.
Mommy. By the horse. Oh, we gotta stay here. We can't get that. We're gonna get on a horsey pretty soon. Oh, this horsey just gave me a kissy.
Yep.
Hi. Hi. This horsey just gave mommy a kissy. Michael, here goes Aunt Patty. Aunt Patty.
There we are.
There's Lee. See Lee, Michael? Look over there. See Patty and Lee?
Lee, bye, Law.
Give me a kiss. They can go.
This one's smaller than Guy. Yours is about the same size as Guy, isn't he?
What's that?
Daddy loves horses, doesn't he, Daddy? Daddy, Brian? You love horses, don't you? Oh, horses and water are two of your favorite things.
Have you got some?
Yeah, right.
I think so. Well, Brian asked for it and he got it.
Well, he's getting butt.
Some patterns he's not aware of.
Like horses, Maggie?
This one is named Apple Mile.
It is.
See, my friend is Lee.
Watch that thing in the sun next.
It already did it.
Daddy will see it.
Michael! Michael!
Right up here, Yvonne's your guide if you have any questions. Oh, come on, that's what I'm Go ahead and put 8. There you go.
You tourist.
He bites. Oh, great. Stay behind.
Bye, guys. Bye. Boy, what a smile and fun. Michael!
Michael.
Smile. They go kart.
Hi, Jack!
tourism character, just some personal things. We have a nice genealogy and now maybe just like a more tourism.
My mother was a very caring person. She took her friends very seriously and did a lot for them. And I felt that she really, contributed a lot to people's life. I remember one morning, I got up kind of late, and there was a girl having coffee in the kitchen with Mother. Well, Mother had been out walking around Lake Harriet. It was during that period when she was really actively taking off the pounds, and she used to walk down Lake Harriet every morning. And she found this girl sitting on a bench over there. And it was the morning after a prom. And the poor girl had had too much to drink and had been afraid to go home and had sat on the bench all night. So Mother brought her home and fed her and everything and talked her into, going back to her mother. And little things like that I wouldn't have known. I was probably at the university I'm older, Well, she did a lot of little things like that she wouldn't tell you about. I just happened to be there to see it. And,
I remember Mother in the home, principally. First as a homemaker. She provided a very nice home atmosphere. Taking care of us always, clothes, ironing, pressing. Nice meals. Very pleasant house to live in. Second phase, and is also in the home, the Mother and Dad belonged to a study group, which meant that at least, once a month in the various homes. And it was a very serious group for the first hour, apparently. We were not really involved in it.
I belonged to it.
You belonged to it for a while. After a while, you did. But in any event, while I was at home, I was more or less just looking in the door and overhearing what was going on. It was a very serious discussion, usually a book review type discussion. And after that, they brought out the coffee and the cookies and had a very nice sociable time. I don't know how many couples were in that group, but maybe 5, 6, 7, something like that. So it was a very pleasant social situation for Mother and Dad. Something they could really do together.
Oh, that group, I didn't go into that.
This, by the way, the date, should we say the date of this recording? This is August 9, is it? August 10, 1987.
Right.
At the YMCA camp at
Okay, and I'm 76 years old.
Young. And Bill, and I'm 72 years old. Young. And I'm Edward, and I'm 66.
All right.
Getting along. One thing, yours young, not yours. Yours young. If you're... Yes.
Oh, we can go back.
Okay. I think a mother as a mother that I can remember in grade school was very particular about the fact that I would study and read. I didn't like to read, and Mother wanted, and rightfully so, wanted me to read a lot. I remember kind of funny little things at the dining room table where carrots were a big thing. I didn't like vegetables. But I was told that if I didn't like carrots, that my eyes, wouldn't be eaten too much. So I ate carrots. But it was done in a way where there was no meanness involved at all. The other thing I remember, especially in grade school, was that it was the Depression. Dad, of course, had a good job. The pay for anybody in those days was practically nothing. But we always had clean, fresh clothes. I always had a clean, freshly pressed white shirt to wear every day to incarnation. And I can remember Mother once saying something similar to, well, it may not be the newest clothes in town, but they are the cleanest and And I was proud of that because times were tough. And I thought that made me feel good, and I appreciated her for, among other things. I have a recollection that's somewhat like that, Ed, but a little bit different in that
there was a depression on, a very heavy depression, as you all know, from December, October, I guess it was 1929, till well into 1938 or so. But never in the house do I remember any mention of, we have to watch the money, we have to be careful. Everything flowed smoothly. As Dad said, we didn't necessarily have the best, the newest, and so forth, but I never heard any mention of finances, the things are tight, and we must be careful. Because I was looking back on it, I thought it was just great. Mother and Dad, no doubt, had discussions, but never in front of the shows, never anything.
You know, that along that line, I honestly never can remember, at least growing up, that I ever overheard them in an argument. I don't believe I ever did. I don't remember. And I think that borders on a small miracle, because, and that's the way the house was run. Like Bill said, there was never any mention of that, and it might have been easy for Mother to say something along the line somewhere. Never one word about it. We knew there was a depression, but there wasn't an issue in our household.
Well, in line with that, I was at the university at that time, going to a sorority, and there was no employment really for college-age kids. I did have a short job one summer, but you belong to a sorority, and there's a dance, and you always want a new dress, or at least every other dance, you know. And I was old enough to realize that Dad was hurting. And I also knew he wouldn't say a thing to me about it. Well, I began to feel that I, being the oldest, with two brothers coming along, they wanted to go to university because Mother and Dad were both college graduates. So I talked to Dad about it one day, and I said, Dad, here I am. And this was the truth too. I finished 2 years at the university. I still don't know what I want to do. I haven't settled in. First I thought I wanted to be a librarian, and then I thought, oh really? And I said, I'm at a place on Flux, and it's costing money. I wasn't contributing anything to the education of my clothes or anything. And I said, I'd really like to drop out for a while in money. And Dad accepted that. And he didn't say, oh, thanks, Kagan, you helped me out a lot. But I wasn't being just really generous. I was at a place where it was a smart thing to do, and I also felt it would help. But as I say, Dad never, and Mother, never ever indicated that things had taken quite a drastic change. Another thing about Mother, she was a very smart woman, and she was a principal of a high school before she was married in some town in Iowa. I can't remember. Is there any record of that? But along with being a good housewife and mother, and I don't ever remember having any help in our home, nor being a great big help myself. Did most of it. She was able to keep up with these study clubs and to hold positions that demand quite a lot of time. Yeah. And I did belong to this one study group that was a Catholic study group, not couples. I moved back to Minneapolis for a while. And she was the first woman chosen by the Archbishop to head up
Archdiocese and Consular.
And that, wow, required a lot of time. And she did. It's
Mother would rarely say,
first president of the deanery.
First president of the deanery.
Deanery, that's right.
Mother would, I can't remember Mother ever say bawling me out or saying, no, you shouldn't do that, and that was an awful thing. So, but you knew she disapproved of some action just by her face. Never a word, but the facial expression, you knew that she had done something to displease it. But she kept it in herself, but you knew. And maybe that's the way to go. You know, you can do a lot of, transfer a lot of meaning just through an expression. Save yourself the words, which are sometimes very hard to select in a nice tactful way or otherwise.
She had that other study club with the women only. One of which, by the way, Mrs. Brecon is still living and is still in Incarnation Parish, and Kay and I, and of course Susie being an Incarnation seer, you know, off and on. That meant an awful lot to her. There were women like, well, I'm going to name just a couple that I remember. The Holtz were close friends. Mrs. Holt was in the group. Mrs. Rockford was in the group. Some of the others, all right, you remember the names. You were in the group. Okay, Mary Hamp, yes. And all good close friends, families that we were all. And I think another thing, Swamp Mother, she was, I always felt she was strict for the good. She made sure that I studied before I got out trying to shoot some buckets or going to play tennis. And I may not have appreciated it at the time, but of course as it worked out, that's the way it should be. But she was always good to me and always backed me up. Mother was a positive thinker.
Honey, you were her favorite.
Wow. Baby. I was in it when I was 21.
Let's hear some more about that.
No, but Mother was very positive, and I think she helped the children, and during the tough times of business and all that, she helped Dad a lot. I mean, she was not a negative person. And as a result, I think she expected a lot out of us. I always felt that. I was trying to follow two successful people in school and what have you, but she was a positive person, and that was one of her strong points.
Swimming. Mother could swim, but I think she worried all day long whenever we were at the beach. And she worried about driving when her first drove, of course, because Mother never drove. She came along at the time just prior when we began to learn to drive.
I think those fear phobias were part of the surgery. All of those things they had. Aunt Rosemary.
She was very fearful.
Aunt Betty had them, and Mother, when I moved back to Minneapolis, she'd want me, if I were over at the duplex just after Dad died, she'd want me to call her when I got home, you know, to Abbott or, you know, just 10 minutes away. But then,
She was great concern for our safety and well-being.
yeah. But as you say, not driving herself, I think she was
Not worried a bit.
Oh, she don't know?
Never.
On the fear bit, one of the first things I remember, and I think I inherited a little of this fear too, was that if there was an approaching storm, down the basement we went, and it was always in a certain corner, and it happened quite often. You know, we didn't have any radios that forecast exactly where it was, so you might be down there a long time with the candles. But Mother was the one, and I felt her, and she really was afraid. I kind of felt that. I remember that.
Well, you know, like
Grandpa.
yeah, no.
Just see what this is fun.
Oh, yeah.
This is
Well, the amazing thing, the wonderful thing as far as I was concerned, is that Mother and Dad were opposites who loved each other enough to, you know, make it work. But they were opposites, don't you think? Yeah, but of course, Dad is just one of those people, you know, to think of them, just choke up, yeah.
You know, I heard
wonderful. You guys see it.
I heard it said so many times, and while he was still living, and especially after he passed away, there was only one Ike Struble, and there was don't know how they put it, only to the extent that everybody loved Ike Struble. I heard that numerous times. Business people, church people, it didn't make any difference who they were. It almost seemed it was impossible a guy could be so good, you know, but really, it was true. I heard that so many times. Oh, it is true.
People would come up to me and tell me, you know, about some special thing that Dad had done for them in business. And, you know, as Ed said, that just everyone not only had something nice to say, which is typical of a white, you know, but I mean a personal thing that they expressed that was unusual, unusually thoughtful and all. And he was a wonderful father, my goodness, you boys know.
Well,
all that he did for you two as you were growing up.
He was very, very honest. And of course, he was a salesman, basically. He was a salesman until the last 10 years of his life, perhaps. And he would, of course, run into competition. And salesmen sometimes kind of twist things a little bit. And he would never do that. And he lost many contracts because of that. And he would come home, I'd hear him mention it to Mother. Mother would try to say, well, you did the right thing. And I think Dad always did the right thing. And they did.
Dad was a tennis player on some note down in Lamar's and in Iowa, as were Dwight and Guy, I understand, was quite a tennis player. Guy, I think he might. Dad played a lot of tennis and out at a young age, I'm sure, and I know he started me out at a young age. I can remember he's the first guy I hit with down there at Nicholas. And
of course, when you got playing tennis, you were probably playing in shorts. I can remember that all tennis players played in long white duck pants. And that, I think shorts didn't come in to tennis play until, well, I was well into high school, which would be mid-30s, early 30s. And I can remember Mother ironing white duck pants for Dad and me at that time, and I don't know who was. But that's a small sidelight. And we dressed well on the tennis court in those days, all white, white duck pants.
on the tennis pin, I can remember the first thing of note that I remember was in 1932, the town of DePaven, which is out at Lake Minnetonka, and there was a large Warburton estate out there with about 6 grass courts, one of which was in a natural hole, a beautiful layout. And 32 George Lott and the Ellsworth Vines put on an exhibition out there, and they were the Davis Cup #1 doubles team in that year. So Dad took me out, and I'll never forget that, seeing these two heroes, you know, playing out at DePaven, George Lott and Ellsworth Vines. But Dad, it was important for, well, it was important enough that I guess he knew I'd enjoy it, and anyway, he would too, and out we went, and I'll never forget it. And I would have been about 11 years old, so he started us out pretty young.
Did you do modest dimensions? You're a good tennis player, or average, or
well,
did you win a few titles? Or?
Well,
Well, we're talking about hikes through.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yes, Dad was very active in scouting for maybe 15 years or so at Incarnation Parish, the location of the troop. When I came along, of course, I think got active in scouting before I was eligible to be a scout, which is age 12 in those days. But when I was 12, I joined, and we had a very active troop. Dad was scoutmaster for many, many years, and then chairman of the committee or whatever. And he was very good in organizing and getting men to volunteer to help him. And of course, he was a very fine influence on all the young boys in the troop. He stayed in scouting for a long time after
yes,
the year.
he was.
And what they're called, but
something Eagle, which is the highest you could get. I don't know. I forget the name. Well, he was still active when I came along, and at one point, Troop 26 became, for sure, 2 troops. And I think that, you know, Dad had a lot to, well, he was the head of the whole deal, so. It developed into 2 troops for sure, and I think for a while 3, but one of the things I remember, you know, he spent so much time on details that maybe he didn't have to, but he thought were important. Our backyard at 3722 Pleasant was where they came, everybody came to do their cooking for what? First class or second class. You had to build a fire and cook something. I forget. It was part of the deal to pass on to the next grade up to first class. Dad was out there, I think practically every evening, you know, with 4 or 5 guys out there, and here they had these certain holes out the backyard, and they're building these fires. He loved it, you know, but, you know, time and time and time and day and day.
This house was not in the country, you know. Urban, 60-foot lot, 60 by 100-foot lot. So,
yeah.
Well, I know there were all the Boy Scout ropes on the back seat.
Yeah. And he was a great guy to take the troops on overnights, or numerous overnights. Really, the time he spent on scouting is almost unbelievable when I stop to think about it. He really spent a lot of time scouting. But it's amazing the number of fellows that was just recently, Jim Taylor down in Incarnation mentioned to Susie, when he found out Susie's maiden name was Struble, that would you remember an Ike Struble? Oh, that's what Jim Taylor said to Susie one day. Yeah, it's my grandpa. And you know, and this is coming.
He knew Dad through scouting.
Yes, through the scouting. That was the scout. Yes,
and that experience was getting back to Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Saying some old high school kids or something that were neighborhood, and they said, "Oh, how I can remember very well scouting when your dad was."
Father James Lavin at St. Thomas College was in
that troop.
His troops.
It's really quite a deal.
Dad had one outside business interest, which, looking back on it, I think is quite interesting. Of course, his main business was Foreman Ford, a paint company, selling all kinds of paints, principally to hardware stores, which in those days, you know, almost every other corner had a little hardware store selling paint and hardware supplies. But he got interested in paint removal and, in effect, invented a formula, various chemicals mixed together, which then you add some water and you spread it on an automobile, leave it there for an hour or so, and then with a spatula or some such instrument, you could scrape the paint off. You have to remember now, this is the days when automobiles had real enamel. You know, you could almost see it, it was so thick. And cars were frequently repainted every 2 years or so. You'd keep the car, you know, for 5, 6, 10 years maybe, and you probably repainted twice while you had the car. Well, Dad invented this mixture of stuff, and I can't remember what the year would be, but we were living in an apartment building, you call it duplex. Duplex, okay, duplex. Well, there was a spare room in the attic, which belonged to us, and he mixed this stuff up there in the attic in some sort of a butter mixer. You know, a big tub. You'd get these chemicals, take them up the attic, put them in certain proportions, and grind them away, mix them up, and then he would package them in paper bags and go around and sell them to the automobile painting shops in Minneapolis. Well, he was very successful at this. He finally moved out of this attic room, and I don't know why the other people in that building would let him do this, or even the owner, because, you know, the powder was sifting around. But then he moved out into a little building which was about half the size of this room, which formerly had been an ice house. Now, you know, before refrigeration, the ice was either delivered to your home or you sent one of the kids with a wagon. Ice got your ice.
7th and Grand.
So he got a bigger mixer, you know, almost one of these cement mixers, hand or power operated cement. And with one company, I can't remember, they were on 10th Street or 11th Street there in Minneapolis, and the process of mixing this material moved down into their business building. It was an auto paint company, actually. Baco Paint. And Dad became part owner of this, and it became kind of a well, it started out, I think, as a hobby, something to do, and then became a small business, and then he got associated with Stateville Paint Company, and it was really, took a lot of his time, which I think Mother was kind of upset about, really, because it took time away from the family, but at the same time, he was still doing the scouting work. With the change in paints and so forth, the business collapsed, and paint removal material was no longer needed.
Well, Dad did have an inventive bed. You know,
Yes,
he
he
was
did.
one of the first to build his own golf cart, which, you know, if he really wanted to, he could have gotten somebody to patent it, but I think, as Bill said, it was kind of hobby for him. He's challenged to, you know, develop something, and,
You know, if I could follow, before I forget it, if I could follow up on 37th and Grand. After that deal kind of slowed down, Dad was very active, and I probably this time was secretary down at Foreman Ford. He had one of the first ideas that anybody knew about trying to make paint odorless.
oh, yeah.
Dad, this is the first I remember of his paint doing, so it's over there in the old ice house. And I think he was using perfumes, if I'm not mistaken, or something along that line. But he would spend parts of Sundays and Saturday nights over there mixing, having all these samples of paints, and trying this and trying that and trying this.
Trying to mask the paint.
To mask the odor. And in those days, remember, there was no latex, so it was all this tough turpentine and the other strong odored materials. And who would know throughout the United States if anybody was working on it, but he never got to the point that, you know, that he could master. Another thing that he developed, at least for Foreman Ford, was a sand mixtured paint. Now, this probably other people had, I wouldn't know, but Foreman Ford, he did so many things on an inventive basis for Foreman Ford in their paint line, you could hardly, I mean, little things. Plus this sand mixture that you use on ceilings and they cover up rough spots. And he'd sit over there and mix that stuff, and boy, did he spend time on that.
It was the paint with the
Paint with the sand or some sort of a fine type of thing to textured paint, that's right. And he got involved in a lot of that stuff, and man, oh my.
What do you think the most important thing is that you learned from him and from Grandma? I mean, hard question, but...
well, as Bill said, honesty,
And Grandpa?
and industriousness.
Yes, that's
Oh, good basic. I mean, all the basic qualities people would like to have.
Mother did not want us to spend any idle moments. Right?
That's right, yeah. I think all of those, and then at least as far as Dad, he was the most forgiving guy I've ever run into. From my own experience, I can vouch for that. Really, you know, and that was I always was thankful for that. But other than that, was the sports bit. He was an athlete in his right. When he grew up, he was a third baseman for the University of Iowa. He did play ball for Foreman Ford. I remember some of my earliest memories at the parade grounds. Dad's playing in the infield for this pretty darn good diamond ball team, or hardball, as we know. Yeah. And so, like, you know, I love sports, and Dad did. He was easy to talk to, and, you know, that type of thing. He played tennis with me, and we used to usher at the Minnesota football games through the Scouts. And boy, did that open up Minnesota sports for me to usher through all the good years of Ernie Bierman in the 30s. And Dad was always there. You know, he was one of the leaders of the ushers and all this stuff. But, you know, I really remember good memories of that. Yeah, a lot of good memories.
Good foundation.
Oh, we did. Yeah, really.
Which we've all tried to.
Another attitude of Mother's was, there will be no alcohol in the house.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that wasn't stated. It was known. And I know I had a few experiences with, you know, Mother. That look. And I think Dad, in his college days and enjoyed a beer or two and things like that. And I think Mother's actually Mother's negative attitude, I think, was perhaps traceable to her father, a druggist. And in those days, even men who were not druggists drank quite a bit.
Yeah. Well,
You know, Dad was my best man at our wedding. And that was fun. And a great guy at the stag. We had a lot of fun that day. And, you know, good
well, I
memories.
think Dad just enjoyed his drinks. And his mother had, you know, relaxed about it. Well, Uncle Tony had a problem too.
Yes.
And if she hadn't had the fear of this developing into something, but if she, you know, relaxed about it, because I don't ever remember seeing Dad intoxicated or, you know, showing any of these symptoms of alcoholism or, you know, getting angry.
At one time, I think Dad got a doctor to prescribe a bottle of beer per night.
I wanted to tell you a story.
Yeah, I wouldn't, really.
I wanted to tell you a story that I think I heard from Aunt Rosemary. You know, she and Betty were Catholics. And Dad was Delta.
I got that written down, Kay.
Mother was visiting down there at the Kappa House. And Dad and a bunch of his fraternity men had all had quite a bit to drink, and they came over and serenaded Mother and at the Kappa House. And Mother was embarrassed, and Aunt Rosemary thought it was fun. Now, see, this was kind of the difference. But that was cute. Maybe Mother, but at least Rosemary said your mom was, you know, kind of embarrassed. He thought it was cute. Good.
Well, you were once teenagers, we were once teenagers, we have teenagers. Would you just, sometimes that's a time of conflict, would you just, could you think of what was one disagreement when you were teenagers? What was the source of disagreement? Or did you always do everything?
Well, no, my sorts of, Mother showed her dislike toward me, or for me, because I started smoking in the back room on 46th and Garfield upstairs, but it was a big bedroom and I had the window. During the time that I was involved, jobs were reported, you know, good jobs. Now, I did a lot of errands from there over to that corner of Westerburg.
Well, anything else anyone else would like to know? I mean, of course, I can't go on and on, and we would remember Charles.
Yeah, one thing leads to another.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of fun things like what were the passions like in your high school, college, and just, I mean, there's zillions of ways you could go.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll add to this 2 years from now.
Sure. Why don't we do that?
Yeah, we do.
And so between now and then, you can start.
All right.
Food for thought.
Very good idea. Sure.
So that's us. This is a 90-minute tape, so we have 45 minutes on this side, we'll flip it over. We'll make copies for everyone of this tape.
Really?
We've enjoyed this very much.
Oh, that was nice. It really was. Nice way to recollect.
And we're happy that you people are interested in this.
Yes, that makes us feel good.
I wish we'd done this with Mother and Dad. Oh, I mean, gotten it on tape, because Mother and Dad both had good stories about the older days in Mars.
Yeah.
And Louisa and Cedar Falls collect all their money to the evangelical church instead of Dad to her. Yeah,
Left off.
And Louisa,
Sartori.
she'd been married, but she was divorced. She had a lot of money, lots of money. She built the hospital there, some young ministers started visiting her regularly in her later years, and so she changed her will and went to this evangelical church. Well, she was a relative now, was she related to
Joe Sartori?
sister, I think?
Probably so.
And the family wanted to contest the will, but then they thought maybe Joe, who had plenty of money anyway, might not want the family name to be in the paper, so they didn't do anything about it. But that was a, a legitimate cause for contesting to change the will. No money.
Thank you.
We don't know.
Thank you very much.
I started just thinking myself, I don't know what's
I can just see that.